It was a typical morning at Thompson Enterprises, one of the most prestigious corporations in the city. Employees rushed through the halls, juggling coffee cups and stacks of paperwork, their eyes glued to screens as they navigated another demanding day. The atmosphere was busy but routine, until a sharp, commanding voice sliced through the air. "Hey! You missed a spot." The entire office fell silent, heads turning toward the source of the voice. Standing near the lobby entrance was Mr. Daniels, the company's CEO. Tall, impeccably dressed, and known for his ruthless management style, he scowled down at an elderly janitor, gripping his mop with weathered hands. Mr. Johnson, a quiet, elderly black man in his 70s, wore a simple beige uniform with no logos or markings. He paused for a moment, wiping sweat from his brow, and offered a polite nod. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll take care of it right away." Mr. Daniels sighed in frustration, shaking his head. "You're too slow, Johnson. Maybe it's time we get someone younger who can actually do the job right." A few employees exchanged awkward glances, whispering among themselves. They had grown used to Mr. Daniels' condescending remarks, but this felt particularly cruel. Mr. Johnson had been with the company for decades, always working diligently without complaint. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe to our channel and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support allows us to bring more inspiring stories to life. And trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Despite the humiliation, Mr. Johnson simply nodded and continued his work, methodically moving his mop across the floor. He had endured far worse in his life, and he wasn't about to let a few harsh words break his spirit. As the day went on, the whispers grew louder. Some employees sympathized with him, while others simply ignored the situation. But no one knew that something remarkable was about to happen. That afternoon, an important investor meeting was scheduled. The pressure was immense, and Mr. Daniels was on edge, meticulously overseeing every detail. "Everything has to be perfect," he barked. "We need to impress these investors." Just as he was about to finalize the setup, he noticed Mr. Johnson wiping down the edges of the conference table. Annoyance flared in his expression. "Johnson, what are you still doing here? Get out before they arrive." "We don't need them seeing this," he said, motioning to Mr. Johnson dismissively. Before Mr. Johnson could leave, the double doors swung open, and a group of well-dressed investors entered. Among them was Mr. Reynolds, an influential figure known for his sharp business acumen. As soon as his eyes landed on Mr. Johnson, his expression changed from polite indifference to utter disbelief. "Johnson? Is that you?" The room went silent. Mr. Daniels frowned in confusion. You know him?" he asked hesitantly. Mr. Reynolds let out a small chuckle, walking closer. "Know him? This man saved my life back in the war. He was one of the most respected officers in our unit." Gasps filled the room. Employees exchanged shocked glances, murmuring in disbelief. Mr. Daniels blinked, his arrogance fading into embarrassment. I had no idea." Mr. Reynolds turned to him sharply. "Of course you didn't. You were too busy looking down on him to see the hero standing right in front of you." The weight of those words lingered in the air long after the investors had left. The once dismissed janitor was suddenly the center of attention. Employees who had barely noticed Mr. Johnson before now greeted him with respect and curiosity. Later that day, as Mr. Johnson quietly continued his work, a young employee named Sarah approached him hesitantly. "Mr. Johnson, I had no idea about your past. Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" Mr. Johnson smiled warmly, pausing for a moment. "Because, Sarah, it's not about what I've done in the past. It's about what I do today. And today, I'm here to do my job." The next morning, the atmosphere in the office had changed. People who once ignored Mr. Johnson now went out of their way to show kindness. Even Mr. Daniels, normally too proud to admit his faults, found himself standing outside the janitor's closet, hesitating before finally knocking. "Mr. Johnson. I owe you an apology," he said awkwardly, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "I misjudged you." Mr. Johnson looked at him with a patient smile. "Sir, respect isn't just about words. It's about how you treat people, every single day." Mr. Daniels nodded slowly, realizing the weight of those words. From that day forward, he made a genuine effort to change his ways, treating every employee with newfound respect. Life has a way of teaching us lessons when we least expect them. Sometimes, the people we overlook have the most incredible stories to tell. This story serves as a powerful reminder that respect isn't about job titles, it's about recognizing the value in every person. If this story inspired you, take a moment to subscribe to our channel and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support helps us bring powerful stories like this to life. And don't forget to leave a comment below. Have you ever misjudged someone based on their appearance?